Hello everyone, welcome to this another video, and in this video we are going to cover a new Frontend challenge. So this advice generator app, this is the challenge we are going to cover in this video. We need to use HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and we also have to use an API to create this challenge. Now at the beginning level, when I was a beginner and I was scared of APIs, I didn't know how to use API, but after using a few of the APIs, I got to know that this is a very easy thing to use, and using the API is super fun. And if you haven't used the API before, any APIs, then I think you should watch this entire video. I'm going to keep it very simple, so this can be a great start for you. And this is exactly the 12 challenge I'm going to cover from the Frontend Mentor. And if you want to watch the rest of the videos from Frontend Mentor challenges, I will leave the link of the playlist in the description below. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now at first, let's get into this. To download the challenge, download the starter files, and once it is done, let's open this up and extract it on the desktop here. I'm going to open the entire folder by using VS Code. Okay, now let's open this up, the index.html by the live server extension. Open with live server, and okay, let's use the Firefox now, but in later I'm going to use the Chrome. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that the words become larger. Let's remove the comment here, we don't need that. Fine. I am also going to delete the attribution styles and this one too. Okay, let's save. Now let's create the markup first. So let's open the file, and we got the design here. This is the active status, and this is the desktop design, and this is the mobile design. I don't think there is much difference between these two, so let's keep this simple and design for on either desktop or mobile. Okay, at first I'm going to create a div with the class of card. Let's also give this ID of card, and inside this card let's open a paragraph tag. I'm going to put the text in here, this advice, then this text, and then there will be the divider, then there will be the button. Okay, now let's give this a class name of title, and it will be advice. But the thing is, this number here will be differentiated, so we need to grab it by ID or class or any selector, so we can modify it from the API. So add vice hash, then let's use a span tag here with the ID of maybe advice ID. Let's put a demo number for now. Let's save it. So this is the paragraph text. Now the next one is the advice. I'll just keep this blank. Div class maybe advice. Let's also give this an ID of advice text. You can put a text here, the dummy text, or we can just keep this empty, it doesn't matter. So let's put up the text here. It is easy to set up. Okay, so this is a dummy advice, we just need it to do the decoration and stylings. Now after the advice, we got the demarcation line or the divider line. We can get the image here, so they're in the images folder. Then let's use the desktop one, we don't need to use the mobile one. After the image, we need the button, so I'm just going to create a button here with the id of btn, and let's also give this a class of btn just in case. Now we need to put the image here. Image will be inside the images, then icon dice. Fine, I think the markup is done, so I'm just going to remove this here, and let's create a style file, style.css, and another one for the javascript, so script.js. Fine, now we need to link this to app, so let's do that. Link css, style.css, and let's also add the script here. It called the script.js. So this is our linked up. Now let's move on to the style.css and do the stylings. So before that, let me open up the readme style guide. So this is the font we need to use, font at 800. Let's open this up. Okay, we just need to use the 800, so let's select it, and I'll just copy this to import it by the CSS, and let's also copy this on. Okay, now let's target the asterisk, which is the universal selector, to remove the existing margin and padding from the browser. So let's do that. Margin will be 0, padding will be 0. Okay, now the default margin and padding is gone. Now let's target the body here, paste the font family. Now the font family has been changed. After that, let's give this a background. They have provided us with a background color, which is, I think, this one, dark grayish blue. Let's paste it here. Okay, it got the color. Now I want to make this center, that's why I just want to make it display flex and align item center, justify content center. We also need to give this a minimum height, otherwise it will not be at the center of the web page. Minimum height 100, viewport height, now they're at the center. Now let's target the card here, which is this on the inter thing. So at first let's target the background. Now let's see the background color, and I think I got a mistake in here because this color kind of looks like this and the background color of the body is kind of darker than this. So what I'm going to do is, we have used this one, let's just copy this color and paste in here to see if this is the correct color. Yes, it is. Now the previous one, which is this one, is the background color for the card, I guess. Okay, I'm going to leave it like this, but if we need to change it again, we are going to do that later. Okay, fine, we got a background color to the card. Now let's give this a maximum height of 400 pixels for desktop. In order to make it center all the text and everything, we can give this a margin of 0 auto just in case, but it doesn't make any difference because we already make it center by using display flex, align items, and justify content. Now after that, let's make the text align center, because as you can see here, everything is at the center. Okay, so let's add some padding of 30 pixels all around the text and everything. Now let's also give this a border radius of maybe 13 pixels to make the corners rounded like this one. Okay, now this is rounded. After that, let's target the title here. The title is this one, so you want to change the color. They have provided us with the color here, neon green. Let's just paste it. Okay, this is the color. Let's make the text transform uppercase. Let's increase, or let's actually decrease the font size a little bit because this is a small, so I'll just make it 14 pixels. Okay, they have given us a font size of 28 pixels for the code. Okay, fine. Let's also increase the letter spacing a little bit, because as you can see there is a letter spacing in here, so there is a gap between the letters. So I'll just give a letter spacing of maybe 3 pixels. Let's also give a padding bottom to create some gap with the code. I will just give this a value of 14 pixels. Okay, fine. Now it got a nice gap. Now let's target the advice here or the code. So they have given us a font size of 28 pixels. So let's apply it. Font size 28 pixels. Sorry, 28. I think this is a little bit bigger. I'll just make it 18 because this seems very big. Okay, we also need to change the color of the text. I think this is the white color, so we don't need to do anything. We can just type out the color to white. Okay, it is looking better. Now what? We can also add a letter spacing to create some gap between the text, maybe on 0.1 pixels, just a little bit. Let's also add a margin bottom to create some gap with the divider, and again 20 pixels. Okay, it is looking fine, but we need to fix the divider here. So let's target the divider. We haven't got any class name for that, so let's give this a class name divider. Let's just copy this so we can just apply it here. Okay, for the divider, let's give this a void of 90%. In order to prevent these two align the same line, we need to give this image a display block, because otherwise by default the images are inline element. So what I'm going to do is give this a display of block. Now they are at the separate lines. Now let's also give this a margin bottom of the same amount we have given before in here, 20 pixels. Let's increase the weight a little bit to 95%. Okay, it looks better. Now this is not properly centered, so I'm just going to give this a margin of 0 and auto. Let's save. Now this is at the center. Now we should make it at the center and position properly in here. So that's why we need to give this dice a position of absolute, so that we can position it according to ourselves. So it got a class of btn. Let's target the class of btn and give this a position of absolute, but in order to do that we need to give this card a position of relative. Fine, position absolute. Now from the left it should be 50%, and from bottom let's give this a minus value to push it down, maybe 31 pixels. I have worked with the values before, so I know. Now let's add the transform and translate x to make it properly center from the left. So it will be 50%, actually minus 50%. Now they are at the properly centered. Let's give this a background color. So it got the background color of this one. So the the title color, this one. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. But the thing is, it got a little bit of border all around it. This is the default border for the button, because the button got a default border, so we need to remove that. So let's target the border and make it none. Let's save, and it is gone. Now let's add a padding here. From top and bottom let's apply 15 pixels, and from left and right 17 pixels. Hopefully it will be kind of a square. Now in order to make it totally circular, we can add the border radius of 50%. Let's save. Now this is totally centered. Now when we hover on that, this should be kind of a pointer, so we can target the cursor and make it pointer. To increase the gap between the divider and the button, I think we should replace it by the padding bottom, and 20 pixels looks okay. Okay, I'm just going to leave it like this. Now it is looking fine, but there is some responsibility issue here because in a smaller size display it kind of gets through it. So let's target a media query. Media only scan and maximum height of 425 pixels. Let's just target the card here and apply a margin. So at top and bottom we don't need any margin because this is already at the center, but on left and right let's apply 12 pixels, and let's also decrease the padding to 20 pixels from 30 pixels. Now let's save and we can inspect this. Now we got a nice margin in here, see, so it is kind of working. So this is fine, we don't need to do anything else with the index.html and style.css. Now it's time we move on to the most interesting part of the entire project, which is the API. Let's close it and let's open the style guide. No, there is nothing here, just close this, and I think there is readme file. Okay, so this is the API. Let's open this up. I'm just going to copy the link and open this up by Chrome. Okay, so this is the actual API. If you open up the URL here, as you can see, it actually returns something, and you can see the full documentation in here. So this actually returns a JSON data. This is in JSON format. Now let's see how we can use it. So I'm just going to minimize this in here, and let's just close this and go to skip.js. Now the thing is, we need to grab something from the DOM. So let's see how this is gonna work. So we are going to click here, and when we click it, it is going to get the data from the API and display it here. So in the DOM we need to grab this text and this button, because whenever we are going to click this button, something is gonna happen. So let's grab that. I'm just going to create some constant, maybe advice ID, and this is going to give us the ID. Document dot query selector not all, and we got the ID. So this is the advice ID. Let's just copy this and paste it in here. We can just create some copy of it. The second thing we want here is the advice text. I'm just going to name the variable advice text, and I think this got the same name, advice text. Let's just copy this, paste it in here. And the third thing we want is the button. So btn. Okay, so we got everything. Now let's grab the function in here, but before that let's open this up. Okay, so I'm just going to explain it to you how the API works actually, and how we can get data from the API. Actually there are several methods. I'm just going to use the fetch method. So just type fetch and then the URL. So this is the actual URL. I'm just going to copy this and put a quotation and paste it in here. Okay, so this is going to return back a promise. So then it is going to give us a response. So let's return the response here. So this is the thing, response dot JSON. So as you can already see, this is a JSON data. So it is going to return this thing. Let's save, and actually I can explain it more clearly. Let's just copy this on here, comment this out, and we can actually console.log it. Okay, let's just save, refresh it, and open up the console. So as you can see here, it returns back a promise, and inside the promise we got a prototype. Let's ignore that, and promise state, it shows fulfilled. And then we got the promise result, which is an object. If we expand this, we can see that we got a sleep object here, and it got an ID of on 78 advice something. So if we refresh it, it is going to give us another ID and advice. So this is how it's gonna work. We are going to get into this slip and then grab everything from it. Okay, so I'll just delete the console.log thing here and uncomment this. So after returning the JSON or the promise, we are going to use the dot then, and let's use a random thing in here. It doesn't matter, we can use whatever we want. Let's just use advice data maybe. So let's use a constant. Let's create a constant. I'm just going to name it advice ID. It is actually done. So let's name it advice number. Let's make it camel case. Okay, fine. Now let's make it equal to advice data, which is this one, dot sleep, which is this one, dot, and as you can see, this is the ID. After that, we also need to grab the advice. So let's just copy this, and for the second constant name, I'm just going to name it advice, just advice. Okay, so we are going to grab the advice from here. Let's just save. So we're going to display it, but before getting into that, we need to also add a catch. So if any reader happens, then it is going to follow these things in here. So whatever you specify in the catch method, error, and let's just console.log the error. And if you want, you can make it more sophisticated, like you can actually run a function in here so that it can show an error message in here. But I don't want to make things that much complicated in this instance. It's just a beginner level challenge, and let's just keep it like this. So now we are going to replace the text from the advice and the actual advice. So let's just do that. We got a advice ID in here. We got the DOM element in this advice ID, dot text content, and we want to change the text content equal to advice ID. Sorry, it should be advice number, which is this one. So if you don't want to use the text content, you can also use the inner HTML as well. Let's just display it to you. So advice text, which is this one, we can use the inner HTML here. And in order to use inner HTML, we got a div, so we can put a paragraph text in here. So in order to do that, we need to use this backtick sign. So we can actually directly use the variable name inside a backtick. So let's use a paragraph tag here, and inside the paragraph tag, if you want to use a variable, you need to use the $sign, then the curly braces, and inside it there will be the name of the constant or variable. Let's just save it, and okay, I think everything is fine. Let's just refresh. And as you can see, with the refresh, the advice ID and the advice is going to change. So this is working perfectly fine. Now we need to modify a little bit, because whenever we are going to click this button, this is going to happen. So what we can do is we can create a function. Let's name it get advice, and we can put everything inside this function. Now we are going to run this function whenever we are going to click it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we are going to target the btn and add a event listener with it. The event will be click. So whenever we are going to click it, something is going to happen. Function, the function is the get advice function. Let's save, reload, and whenever we are going to click it, it is going to happen. So this is working great. But when the website or this thing is going to open up for the first time, it is going to be empty because we haven't clicked the button yet. So what we are going to do is we are going to run the function on load of the window. So again, window dot on load, not on about, on load. Let's use the arrow function in here. I'm just going to use multiple type of things in here so that we can understand or we can learn new things. So on load, we are going to run the get advice function again. See, on load, this is going to change, and even if we click it again, it is going to change again. It is taking a little bit time because it has to communicate with the API to get the data. So you can also add a load style or animation in here so that it takes a little bit of time before showing up the advice and things. So this is the entire project, and I think you like this. So I'm just going to add the entire project in the Codepen. If you want to see the project or see the source code, it will be there. I'll leave the link in the description below. So thank you very much for watching, and if you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe the channel and give this video a thumbs up. See you in the next one. Until then, take care and goodbye.